remarks, and I have, the people who are availing themselves of the Obamacare that the Republicans say is so horrific, they're in red states. I'm not saying that it's not happening in blue states, but the majority of them are in red states. People have some kind of, many people have some kind of a perception that our poverty in our nation is in our inner cities. And some of the railing against programs to help people who are impoverished, I believe, and I will say this as a white man, is racial in nature. But if you really look at the situation, as I mentioned yesterday, in regard to a completely different discussion, the most impoverished areas of our country are in rural America, not in our inner cities. The inner cities get the coverage because, well, the media are there. There's no media to cover what's going on in, as I pointed out yesterday, many of these Appalachian communities. Nobody knows what's going on. It's all flyover. And so I think we neglect a whole section of our country of people who we profess to care about, but we really don't provide the programs to help them. I really feel bad for the farmers right now, who, because of the tariffs, which may have, in the aggregate, positive outcomes for the country, they can't sell their soybeans and they can't sell their beef.
Canada John. This is Critical Thinking with Gary Baumgarten. Jack and Jones.
I don't know.
Go to JohnForCongress.com, running in the 16th district in Illinois to unseat and defeat Gary Little. This is a 20-minute
They've been ignored. This is all in rural America. And I think maybe Madison, if I were a Democrat, if I was a Democratic leadership, which of course I'm not, I might have taken the tack that you suggest. Vote for the resolution and hold the Republicans' feet to the fire and let the chips fall where they may. And I don't know why they didn't do that, but I think the country and probably their party would have come out of this looking a lot better than maybe they will be as this continues to egg on. Because as Scott just said, and Scott's a Democrat, maybe they're overplaying their hand today by not voting to pay the working essential federal employees. Maybe they're overplaying their hand, and maybe there's going to be a backlash to that. And if there is, I wouldn't be surprised, Madison. We now go to Tiger, followed by Les. Tiger.
Hey, Gary. Since you baited me into it, I just have to mention that I think the Israel impediment to the ceasefire is probably the...
Les, followed by Dominic.
Howdy.
I don't know what he thinks he gains by doing that. But go ahead, Les, you're up.
Yeah. Obviously off topic. One area where you really need to have continuity is in health, in science. You've got these experiments being run with white mice and animal experiments and stuff. And they're going to continue to eat and they're going to need to be housed and taken care of, regardless of what Congress decides that they want to take a little break. And you might have 10 years of experiments, and if the mice die, then you just wasted the last 10 years. And some poor guy with cancer isn't going to get the cure he wants.
is that a hypothetical, or is this actually happening that that there are animals that are being used for medical research who are unattended during the government shutdown?
It's Canada Jones' 20-minute
They
reel.
have
It's
to
called
be
Critical Thinking
attended
Forum,
to, and
Gary
somebody's got to
Baumgarten,
pay for that.
Scott Kent Jones.
How do we know they're being attended to?
Well, I mean, that's a standard thing you do in biology is you have animal models.
No, I understand what the standard is, but how do we know that during the shutdown that there's somebody going into this, maybe a locked building on a daily basis tending to the animals? How do we know that that's happening?
For example, this is probably their place they take care of animals.
This is Canada John running the 16th district to defeat and
They're
unseat
called
Darren the Hood. This is called Critical Thinking Forum, Gary Baumgarten, Scott Kent Jones. Go to johnforcongress.com.
Taken care of in the universities. Yeah, that's true. But are all of them being, or are there government labs run by government employees? I don't know. I mean, I'm seriously asking the question.
Well, I do know that there's also work being done at the CDC. I know one person in particular that's working, and she's got, they've got lab samples that have to be checked every day and stuff like that. It's not just the kind of thing you just kind of put on hold and come back to. And that's a special case. I'm not saying that's true for all government employees, but that's a particular area that poor Gary's going to die of cancer because no one's going to come up with some treatment when he needs it. And and so that's I think it's a concern. And you can't just willy-nilly, hire people and fire people and expect folks to.
Right. So since I raised the specter of this, I apologize for interrupting. But while you're talking, I'm on the HHS, the Health and Human Services website, and there are contingency staffing plans, which include the CDC. That protect work that continue to fund work necessary to protect human life or to protect property during a funding lapse. So the immediate response to urgent disease outbreaks, it says, and critical investigation needs, and maintaining laboratory functions. So I'm sorry if I interjected something into the conversation that gave people undue angst, because I know how folks tend to react when they hear that animals are not being properly attended. And so I was asking the question, I wasn't making a point, and so that's why I wanted to correct that right now. And folks, again, do not message the moderator, please, while he is moderating the room, because you will just pull him out of the conversation, and perhaps that's your intent, but it won't work with me, so you're wasting your time attempting that. Les, please continue, and I apologize.
No, that was great. That's exactly what I needed to know, and it's very reassuring. I do think there is a bigger problem that of getting people in the field and of healthcare, because it's just kind of cruel the way they fired all these people and then brought them back. It's just, as you know, well, as anybody that's worked knows, just to be fired for no particularly good reason except your company somehow has been mismanaged or whatever. It's good you get brought. I guess it's good you get brought back later, but it's kind of a form of incompetence. There was this, what is it, the CW, I think it's called the CWR, which is how we keep track of how doctors know what diseases are going around. And they fired all those people, and then they did a whoopsie, and then, a few weeks later, they brought them back. It just that's a problem. We do have but I really appreciate what other people have been saying. I really appreciate someone bringing up the fact we do have a $38 trillion deficit. And one way to get people to pay attention, I suppose, is to, try to, cut down the head count. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. I can tell you that in my business, both journalism in general and radio in particular, there ain't no coming back from the layoffs. And they're happening on a daily basis. And arguably, you, the public, suffer as a result. Bigly. Dominic, followed by candidate, and we will in 5 minutes be no longer inviting folks onto the stage. So if you want to do it, raise your hand now would be a good time. Dominic.
Hey, Gary. Happy Thursday, everyone. I'm thinking about how to make a contribution to the conversation. The idea, we'll speak to the question of the room. I'm kind of leaning towards the idea that no one should get paid during the government shutdown. I like the idea of the word ambiguous came up earlier, and I don't know who used it, but I liked hearing it because all the workarounds make the brinksmanship, which is sort of a theatrical way of presenting the government shutdown, is that it is a theatrical presentation of brinksmanship. That we think there's a crisis, and so we have to act. But in the middle of it, there's all these workarounds. Essential workers, blah blah blah. Somebody said, is it the individual worker's responsibility to be prepared for government shutdowns? Of course it is, but just because it's their responsibility doesn't mean they're going to do it. The 2 points I wanted to make it now they're coming to. Government employment as a policy can either be income distribution, in other words, giving income of the country to those who the economy cannot employ. Just think of Roosevelt and the New Deal, and the work corps and building of dams and road work and arts and crafts, the whole New Deal concept, which was a proto-socialist answer to the failures of capitalism at the time. And if we look at the other expressions of that same kind of policy, we look at, say, Argentina or Greece, in which large pension back end, we call in government, we call these back end contracts. You can have a lot of employees and not pay them a lot, but 25 years from now, you're going to pay a big bill. And that kind of has always been kind of the government payroll scam that government has played on the populace. Because I can have people work for the government and still remain budget conscious. It brings down cultures, it brings down governments, as we saw it in the Western Hemisphere, Argentina, Brazil, all these governments which hired as a matter of income distribution government employees. The other idea is that there is absolute work that government needs to do. Sanitation.
You're losing your modulation. Can you speak into the mic?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
A lot better.
A lot better. Okay, thank you. Other essential service, police, I was going to say school teachers, but so there is this theory of the case that is in conflict from a policy perspective, Gary, whether we are trying to employ, just say like Boss Tweed, going back to the 1875, 1890s, all the way through 1930s, 40s, in which Boss Tweed used corruption in government to employ impoverished Irish people. Gave them jobs in city government. They became dominant in the police department and in local politics as a means of jettisoning that impoverished population into some kind of economic class. David Dinkins did it with the blacks in New York City when he was mayor. And these are righteous, or I like to use the term virtuous policy prescriptions. But when government no longer has the spigot to finance these policy prescriptions, crisis emerges. The more we're dependent on these apparatuses of hiring people in order to distribute income, it puts the whole society at risk. And that's kind of where I wanted to get to in terms of where the people should, theoretically, a government should not be so important that if it's not operating, it should matter that much. But we are so beyond that as in terms of governmental theory and practice that we are now addicted to government in our lives. And there's nothing we can do about it except go through the addiction. And, those who claim virtue as being, their shield in the conversation, it's very difficult to do business with them because they're the virtuous ones and everyone else is not. Anyway, that's all I got.
Do you see a retraction from this sometime in the future?
I don't think so, Gary. The next wave of impoverished immigrant is going to be the Spanish, who we led in mass migration. They will be the next, million cohort to take over the apparatuses of government. I'll say in the next 15 to 20 years, and I don't see us getting out of that cycle. After that, after we absorb the Spanish mass migration, we may have an opportunity. But I think we're 25 years away. 25 years away from that.
Thank you, Dominic. We will no longer be inviting folks on the stage, but we will go into extra time to give everybody on the stage an opportunity to speak. And those on the stage are in this order: Candidate, Double, and Steve. Candidate.
Hey Gary, thanks for having me on your stage. Really enjoy your room. I like that you turn off the chat. I also went on YouTube and I typed in Gary Baumgarten. I saw your YouTube channel with all your recordings, and I did want to ask you a question about consistency and communication, but I do want to talk about this government shutdown. But I do also want to read a verse from the Tao Te Ching, which is the 75th verse, and the name of that chapter is called Who Can Enjoy the Treasures of Life? It talks about taxes. I'd just like to read it as a quick little snippet from the Tao Te Ching, if that's okay. It's the best value I can bring to the room. It says, why are the people so hungry? Because their grain is devoured by the rich in taxes. That is why the people are starving. why are the people so rebellious? Because the government deprives them of their liberties and rights. That's why the people are rebellious. Why do the people not fear death? Because their lives are made so miserable that death seems no worse than life. Thus no one enjoys the treasures of life, neither the rich who squander their humanity, nor the government which tyrannizes the people, nor the people who have nothing to gain from life. There's commentary on that. But that's the Tao Te Ching. I've been studying that extensively as I campaigned to unseat and defeat Darren LaHood in the 16th District of Illinois. I'm a federal former employee of the IRS, the Treasury Department. And I spent 5 years there observing every employee under the sun, every business unit. I worked in facilities, I opened and closed offices, I interacted with the criminal tax investigators, the police of the IRS. I worked with the lawyers of the IRS and their big business and international business cases. I've seen it all in the IRS. That is a huge budget. If you look at the $38 trillion threshold that we just crossed in debt and the $1 trillion a year that we're paying, which is really about $100 billion a month now, it's not just an American problem with debt. It's a European problem. It's a Chinese problem. The whole world runs on central bank fiat currency. And so it's my opinion that you can use debt as a political tool to cause fear. But the truth is, all debt can be resolved. It comes out in inflation, and the future congresspeople and senators of the United States of America are essentially going to have to work with international banks to resolve debt. And as someone who has a lot of debt, and I get a yield on that debt, not all debt is bad, but it's neither here nor there. There's a lot of employees in the U.S. federal government that are happy that they don't have to go to work right now, and they're going to get paid back. I used to be in the National Treasurer Employer Union, and if you get furloughed, you get back pay for the work that you didn't even do. The system is geared for the value of the employee. And the average federal employee is making $120,000 a year. They technically only work 9 months out of every year. 30 days for sick, 30 days for vacation, 30 days for holidays. So you literally make $120K at 9 months a year. That's a good job. And it's a career. You can count on it. The guy that hired me said, I've never seen an IRS employee get fired in my entire career, in my whole life. I've never heard of it. It doesn't happen. So I got fired. I stopped going to work. I couldn't keep opening and closing IRS offices, spending millions of dollars, knowing that we're $37 trillion in debt. And I'm opening and closing shakedown offices for young women and men who drive Ubers, who are just trying to feed their babies. And they got to go into an IRS taxpayer compliance office and get shaken down. It's a shakedown operation. The country is so far broke. Why do we even tax ourselves when we just print the money and we keep borrowing from the Federal Reserve? So the system, in my opinion, we're just going to keep plugging holes. This is a sinking ship with a lot of leaks, but that's okay. The boat is still sailing, and it's come October 31st, you got to pull the boat out of the water. So the Democrats want to spend more than the Republicans, and the Republicans want to spend more than what they even say. This is all about borrowing and spending as much as possible. And, I align myself with Thomas Massey, who believes we should cut the federal budget, but 1% annually to start and go from there, because you don't run your life like this. Nobody runs a business like this. No real for-profit organization can run like this, except for our immortal United States government and the magic that it creates. So I'm optimistic. I hope everybody has a good night. Gary, I love your room. Scott Kent Jones, God bless you. Howard, God bless you. Thank you for donating to my campaign, Howard. And Alan, I also love you too. I like nice people. That's what it comes down to. I don't care what the problem is. If we can be nice and kind to each other, we will survive and find a solution, because it's all just artwork. Your $1, your 10, your 100, your 50, that's a canvas, that's a piece of paper. But the social commitments that we have to each other, because it's not just 38 trillion in debt, it's 100 trillion in debt. All those unfunded liabilities and pensions that millions of federal workers got to get paid out on, and all these state municipal workers that got to get paid out on their pensions over the next 20 years, the whole system is completely upside down. But that's okay, because bankers and lawyers, it's all communication. We're not pulling out knives and daggers and M16A4s and rocket-propelled grenade launchers like we're living on the border of Ukraine. Our problems are communication problems. These financial debts, borrowing, spending, and taxing will resolve. They'll have to resolve. Otherwise, then we will start fighting. But I think we can resolve it. Thank you, Gary. God bless you. Scott, God bless you. Alan, Howard, Double, Steve, God bless you all.
Howard, did you want to respond to his thanking you for contributing to his campaign?
No response necessary. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, so the average salary of a federal worker is $101,610. So you inflated that a bit. And the annual vacation leave is 13 days a year at less than 3 years of service, 20 days a year, 3 to 15 years of service, sick leave 13 days a year, and 11 paid federal holidays. I don't know whether that adds up to the numbers that you proffered, but I don't think that they do. Thank you, candidate. Double, followed by Steve. Double.
Hi, Gary. It's good to be here with you. As much as I dislike the previous speaker, I have to say sometimes I do agree with.
But he loves you. He loves you.
And I wanted to.
I think you should return the love, big.
Well, he did ask God to bless me, so I will return that and ask God to bless him as well. And I thank him for that. And Gary, one thing just I wanted to reflect back, going back a bit, is I was just surprised to hear you say or admit, even though it was a qualified thing, you were like, it might be possible that the tariffs are actually beneficial for the country in the aggregate.
I don't believe I said that, so I think that I'm appreciating the fact that you're giving me the opportunity to clarify, because apparently, once again, I did not properly use the English language and I was misinterpreted. I never said that, and in the context of what I discussed, I said, even if there are benefits, I didn't say Gary believes that there are benefits, and so I might think that, I don't know, because that's not what I said. So please do not misquote me.
No, that's fair. I didn't mean to misquote you. It was just maybe even hinting that it might be possible, I thought was, notable, but I didn't mean to misinterpret you. As far as this shutdown and people being paid, I really think this is a distraction. This is kind of what they want you to be talking about. They want people to get stirred up over, it is a big nothing burger. The previous speaker sort of hinted at the fact of, you're actually in the best position. It's the people who are working and not getting paid, which maybe you're specifically targeting at those people, but those are way the worse off people, although they're going to be fine as well. They're just slightly worse off than if we didn't have the government shutdown. And you could do the math on, okay, just how much, what is the present value calculation of a deferred payment or something? And I don't know if people get interest or not, but the interest on, a couple weeks or even a couple months of missed paychecks is not going to make the difference in somebody's life. What is going to make the difference in some of these federal workers' lives is, or those associate, knock-on contracts or whatever, is if then the president is empowered to cut their jobs permanently. And I think they're using strong language like with no possibility of rehire or something like this. That's what people really should be getting their knickers in a twist about. Not, they're going to have a 2-month delayed payment and therefore they're missing out on 2%, net present value of those specific paychecks. It's just, let's be honest, if you took Finance 101, it's not a big deal. If we really have that many federal workers living on the brink of starvation and poverty and eviction, that they're guaranteed for how many decades kind of job that at least they thought they had. That they didn't manage to save or maintain enough credit with their banks, who are now bending. I go to my bank now, Gary. I log in, and there's a giant banner at the top about, if you're a government worker affected by this, we have money for you. We're just going to throw money at you so we all feel good about ourselves. This is the situation.
No, you're not saying that so that we can all feel good about ourselves. You're not naive enough to believe.
I'm reading between the lines. You're
Yeah,
right.
I don't think you. I don't think. Hold on. I don't think you're so naive as to believe that that the federal government, that the banks are doing this so that we can all feel good about ourselves. They're doing it because they want to sell money and gain on the interest, right?
Boom. Well, even you're making my next point, Gary. Thank you, because America is one of the shining beacons on the hill of capitalism in this dark world that we live in, and as such, we have how much of our economy. It's actually, I looked up, even financial services is 7%, over 7.5%, which I think is almost criminal, but that's for starters. Is 7.5% of GDP is financial services, and I would say probably GDP wise, given to the point of the last speaker about we're living on these fake Federal Reserve notes, but the U.S. actually is taxing the rest of the world through these like a good chunk of our GDP and our livelihoods, the cheapness with which we can access goods is actually because we're just issuing this funny money. Anyway, maybe I digress, but the point is, in this world of high finance, the idea that a government worker can't get a bridge loan for a couple months, from these profit-seeking, driven by the invisible hand, everyone following their selfish aims, to give them money so they can pay the rent that month and keep the lights on and keep their kids, fed and everything. I mean, it just beggars belief that this is actually a crisis. That the delayed paychecks is a crisis that we need to worry about. I've been let go from many jobs over my decades of career, and you know what? You go from having a paycheck to zero, and then you have to figure out what to do. It's like if the worst thing that's going to happen to you in your career is getting your paycheck delayed by a few weeks, it's like you're living pretty high on the hog, and I think we should all remember that when we think about the government shutdown. Anyway, I hope I made my point. Thank you so much for having me, Gary.
Thank you, Double. Steve, you get the last word.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a good move politically to put this on the table. As far as should we pay them, well, I don't think it'd be a bad thing, but I'm not sure I know the laws well enough or the accounting well enough to really have a commentary on it one way or the other. So more than anything, I think it was just shrewd to put this on the table, to say, hey, look, we want to pay them, but they won't. And this is kind of stuff that goes on in D.C. all the time. I'll leave it there, Gary.
Thank you, Steve. Folks, we're here Monday through Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. New York time, so until 5 p.m. New York time tomorrow for the next edition of the Critical Thinking Forum. Everybody be safe, be well, and peace out.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. That's Critical Thinking Forum. Go to johnforcongress.com. Go to johnforcongress.com. Thanks for watching.